Nursing homes spend millions on glossy brochures and pristine lobbies, but there's one room they'll never show you during the tour. I've worked inside these facilities for 12 years, and what happens behind closed doors would shock even the most prepared families. 7 realities exist that nobody talks about. Walking into a nursing home feels like entering a different world. The hallways echo with silence broken only by the occasional shuffle of slippers or distant television chatter. What strikes you most isn't the sterile smell or beige walls, it's the profound loneliness hanging in the air like morning fog. Here's something that'll shock you. 60% of nursing home residents never receive a single visitor, not once. These aren't numbers from some dystopian novel. This is happening right now in facilities across America. Families drop off their elderly relatives and essentially vanish, leaving behind people who raised children, built careers, and lived full lives, now sitting alone day after day. Even families who want to visit face ridiculous obstacles, visiting hours that end at dinner time, policies that change weekly without explanation. Some places require advance notice just to see your own mother. Makes sense, right? Well, not really. These restrictions existed long before COVID turned everything upside down. The pandemic made things infinitely worse, but let's be honest, the isolation problem was already massive. Residents would go weeks without meaningful human contact beyond basic care interactions. A quick take your pills or time for lunch doesn't exactly qualify as social connection, but here's where it gets really heartbreaking. Loneliness doesn't just make people sad. It literally kills brain cells. Studies showed that isolated elderly people experience cognitive decline at twice the normal rate. Their minds deteriorate faster when starved of conversation, laughter, and genuine human connection. It's like watching a flower wilt in fast motion. Then there's the confusion factor that nobody talks about. Rules change constantly in these facilities. Monday, visitors allowed until 8 p.m. Tuesday, suddenly it's 6 p.m. Wednesday, only immediate family. Thursday, who knows? Residents with dementia or memory issues can't keep track of these shifting policies, leading them to believe their families have simply abandoned them. Staff members often become the only human contact residents have, but here's the catch. They're too overwhelmed to provide real companionship. A nursing assistant caring for 20 residents can't exactly sit down for heart-to-heart conversations. They're rushing from room to room, handling medical tasks, dealing with emergencies. Meaningful social interaction becomes an impossible luxury. Weekend isolation hits particularly hard. Skeleton crews mean even less attention. Families assume other relatives are visiting, creating a bystander effect where nobody actually shows up. Residents spend entire weekends staring at walls or watching game shows, counting hours until Monday brings slightly more activity. Some families live far away, making regular visits genuinely difficult. Others avoid visiting because seeing their loved one in decline feels too painful. Who can blame them? Watching someone you care about fade away isn't exactly a pleasant Sunday afternoon activity. Still, the residents pay the emotional price for these understandable human reactions. Technology could help bridge the gap, but many facilities lag behind the digital age. Video calls require staff assistance most residents can't get. Simple phone calls become complicated when hearing aids don't work properly or arthritis makes dialing impossible. The very tools that could combat loneliness remain frustratingly out of reach. The psychological impact creates a vicious cycle. Depressed, lonely residents become less engaging company, which makes visiting feel more awkward and depressing for families, leading to fewer visits, which increases depression and isolation. Round and round it goes, like a social death spiral. Administrative priorities don't help either. Facilities focus on medical compliance, safety regulations, and liability concerns. Emotional well-being gets pushed down the priority list, treated as a nice-to-have rather than essential health care. When did we decide that keeping people alive mattered more than helping them actually live? Consider this bizarre reality. Prisoners in maximum security facilities often receive more visitors than nursing home residents. At least inmates have scheduled visiting hours that families can count on. The comparison sounds extreme, but the isolation levels are genuinely similar. Some residents create imaginary social lives to cope. They talk about visits that never happened or phone calls that exist only in their minds. It's their brain's desperate attempt to fill the social void that's slowly consuming their mental health. And this crushing loneliness represents just the beginning of problems plaguing America's nursing homes. While residents sit alone counting ceiling tiles, another invisible threat spreads silently through shared spaces, turning these facilities into breeding grounds for something far more dangerous than heartbreak. Living in close quarters during cold and flu season is bad enough. But when you're packed into a nursing home with dozens of other vulnerable people, sharing dining rooms, hallways, and sometimes even rooms, that's when things get seriously dangerous. COVID-19 showed us just how deadly nursing homes can become. The numbers are absolutely staggering. Residents died at a rate 108 times higher than the general population. Let that sink in for a moment. 108 times higher. We're talking about facilities that house less than 1% of Americans, but accounted for over 40% of COVID deaths in some states. But here's what really gets me angry about this whole situation. These weren't random tragedies. They were predictable disasters waiting to happen. Most nursing homes weren't built with infection control in mind. They were designed to feel homey, not hospital sterile. Residents share elevators, eat together in cramped dining halls, and participate in group activities. When one person gets sick, it spreads like wildfire through a dry forest. The virus doesn't care about your bingo schedule or medication routine. Poor ventilation makes everything worse. Many facilities have outdated HVAC systems that basically recirculate the same air throughout the building. Remember learning about air circulation in middle school science class? Well, apparently whoever designed these places skipped that lesson. Fresh air gets trapped, stale air lingers, and airborne illnesses have a field day. Then there's the staffing nightmare that makes disease outbreaks even deadlier. When residents start falling ill, they need immediate medical attention. But with chronic understaffing, that help often comes too late. Nurses are already stretched thin on normal days. Add a flu outbreak or COVID surge, and the system completely breaks down. Staff members themselves become unwitting disease carriers. They work long shifts, often at multiple facilities, to make ends meet. Makes sense, right? They need to pay their bills somehow, but this means they're potentially carrying infections from one nursing home to another, creating a network of disease transmission across entire communities. The scary part isn't just the big pandemics we hear about on the news. Regular seasonal flu kills thousands of nursing home residents every year. Norovirus outbreaks cause severe dehydration. Even simple respiratory infections can turn deadly for someone with a compromised immune system. Let's not forget how medication schedules get disrupted during outbreaks. When facilities go into lockdown mode, residents might miss critical treatments. Physical therapy stops. Routine medical visits get canceled. Someone recovering from a stroke suddenly loses weeks of progress because they can't leave their room. And the weird part is how these outbreaks reveal just how unprepared most facilities really are. You'd think places caring for the most vulnerable population would have bulletproof emergency protocols. Instead, we discovered that many didn't even have adequate supplies of basic protective equipment. Nurses were reusing masks, improvising with garbage bags as gowns, and rationing hand sanitizer. Family members found themselves completely cut off during the worst outbreaks. No visits, limited phone calls, sometimes no communication for weeks. Parents and grandparents were dying alone while their loved ones sat helplessly at home, wondering if their family member was even still alive. But why does this keep happening over and over? Because nursing homes operate on razor-thin profit margins. Investing in better ventilation systems, maintaining larger staff ratios, or keeping emergency supply stockpiles costs money. Money that eats into profits. The mathematics of infection in these environments is terrifying. One sick staff member can expose dozens of residents in a single shift. One infected resident can contaminate shared spaces that hundreds of people use daily. Within 72 hours, an entire wing can be dealing with an outbreak. Recovery takes longer for elderly residents too. A healthy 30-year-old might bounce back from the flu in a week. An 85-year-old with diabetes and heart problems, that same flu could mean months of complications, permanent disability, or death. Well, surviving the constant threat of disease is just one battle, because even if residents manage to stay healthy, they're fighting another war entirely. One that involves the very people supposed to protect them. And that's where things get really dark. The infections and isolation are bad enough, but here's where things get truly disturbing. What happens when the people supposed to protect our most vulnerable start hurting them instead? 1 in 8 nursing home residents will tell you they've experienced neglect if you ask them directly. That's not a small problem. That's an epidemic hiding in plain sight. Over 5 million older Americans face abuse every single year, and the majority of it happens right where they're supposed to be safest. Sarah Williams thought her grandmother was just getting clumsy when she kept showing up with mysterious bruises. The staff always had explanations. She fell getting out of bed, bumped into her wheelchair. You know how fragile elderly skin can be. Took 3 months before Sarah realized the bruises formed perfect finger patterns on her grandmother's arms. The most common signs aren't always obvious beatings or screaming matches. Bed sores tell a different story. One of people left lying in the same position for hours without anyone checking on them. When your body weight cuts off blood flow to your skin for too long, tissue starts dying. These wounds can get so deep you can see bone. They're almost entirely preventable with basic care, yet they're found in nursing homes across the country every single day. Malnutrition is another silent killer. Residents lose weight rapidly when no one ensures they're actually eating their meals. Maybe they need help holding a spoon, or their dentures don't fit right, or they're too depressed to care about food. Staff shortages mean meals get delivered and picked up without anyone noticing. Half the plate went untouched. The result? Frail bodies get even weaker, making residents more susceptible to falls, infections, and death. Then there's the psychological abuse that leaves no visible marks. Residents get yelled at for wetting themselves, called names when they forget things, threatened or intimidated when they complain about their care. Some staff members use residents' dementia against them, knowing they won't remember the mistreatment or won't be believed if they try to report it. Financial exploitation runs rampant too. Staff members have been caught stealing everything from jewelry to Social Security checks. Family members aren't immune either. Point is, adult children sometimes view nursing home placement as an opportunity to gain control of their parents' assets, while the parent can no longer protect themselves. But here's what makes this crisis particularly twisted. The very people experiencing the abuse are often the least equipped to report it. Dementia patients might not remember incidents clearly enough to describe them. Residents dependent on staff for basic needs fear retaliation if they speak up. Others worry they won't be believed, especially when their complaints are dismissed as confusion or attention-seeking behavior. The statistics get worse when you dig deeper. Emergency room visits from nursing homes show patterns of unexplained injuries, dehydration, and medication errors that suggest systematic problems rather than isolated incidents. Yet prosecutions remain rare because proving intent in elder abuse cases is notoriously difficult. Staff training often focuses on technical medical procedures while glossing over how to interact respectfully with residents who might be scared, confused, or frustrated. New employees get thrown into high-stress situations without adequate preparation for dealing with challenging behaviors compassionately. When a resident with dementia becomes aggressive during care, undertrained staff might respond with force instead of de-escalation techniques. The regulatory system meant to prevent these problems operates more like a revolving door. Inspections happen infrequently and are often announced in advance, giving facilities time to clean up their act temporarily. Fines for violations are frequently so small that large corporate chains treat them as routine business expenses rather than serious deterrents. What's particularly heartbreaking is how normalized this treatment becomes. Family members start accepting declining conditions in their loved ones as inevitable parts of aging rather than potential signs of neglect. Residents themselves begin to expect poor treatment and stop advocating for better care. The abuse isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's the result of complete system breakdown. When one aide is responsible for 30 residents during a shift, corners get cut. Basic dignity gets sacrificed for efficiency. People become tasks to complete rather than human beings deserving respect and compassion. Of course, understaffing contributes to many of these problems, but the staff shortage crisis goes much deeper than simple numbers. Here's the brutal truth about nursing home staffing. 37% of workers experience burnout so severe they're practically zombies shuffling through their shifts. And guess who suffers when your caregiver is running on fumes and frustration? The math is simple but terrifying. Most nursing homes operate with skeleton crews that would make a haunted house jealous. Federal guidelines suggest one nurse for every 8 residents during the day. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, reality just laughed in your face. Many facilities run with ratios closer to one nurse for 15 residents, sometimes 20. When Mrs. Henderson needs help getting to the bathroom and Mr. Johnson is having chest pain, someone's waiting, someone's always waiting. Then there's the turnover rate that spins faster than a carnival ride. Some facilities lose their entire staff every 6 months. You know what that means? The person helping you shower today might be gone tomorrow, replaced by someone who doesn't know you prefer warm water or that you have a bad shoulder, starting over again and again with strangers who are already overwhelmed before they clock in. But wait, it gets worse. Many of these overworked staff members aren't fully trained for what they're dealing with. Sure, they passed their certification, but handling someone with advanced dementia who's having a violent episode, that's graduate level stuff they learned on the job, if they learned it at all. When you're juggling 20 confused, scared, sometimes combative residents, patience becomes a luxury few can afford. The domino effect is predictable and devastating. Overworked staff take longer to respond to call buttons. Basic needs like changing soil bedding or helping someone eat become rushed, impersonal transactions. Some residents wait hours for assistance with simple tasks like getting a drink of water. Others give up pressing their call button altogether, knowing help might not come for ages. Here's where things turn genuinely dark. Stressed, undertrained, exhausted workers sometimes snap. Not all abuse in nursing homes comes from malicious intent. Sometimes it's just human breaking points reached by people who never should have been put in impossible situations. A rough grab during transfers, impatient yanking when dressing someone, sharp words delivered to someone who can't defend themselves. The system creates these moments of failure. And let's not forget the economic reality driving the staffing nightmare. Certified nursing assistants, the backbone of daily care, often earn less than fast food workers. Many work multiple jobs just to survive, showing up to their nursing home shifts already drained from their other employment. When you can make more money at Target with better benefits and less emotional trauma, why would talented people choose elder care? The ripple effects touch everything. Meals get served cold because there aren't enough hands to distribute them quickly. Medications arrive late because the nurse is handling an emergency 3 rooms down. Social activities get canceled because the recreation director is covering for missing nursing staff. The whole system buckles under the weight of too few people trying to do too much. But here's the part that should make you furious. Many of these facilities are still profitable. They're choosing to operate with minimal staff to maximize their bottom line while residents suffer the consequences. It's a business model built on cutting corners where vulnerable people pay the price. Some dedicated staff members genuinely care and work miracles despite impossible conditions. They stay late, skip breaks, and form real connections with residents. But even these heroes eventually burn out or leave for better opportunities, taking their institutional knowledge and genuine compassion with them. The saddest part, many residents understand what's happening. They see their overworked caregivers struggling and feel guilty for needing help. They apologize for basic human needs, trying to be easy residents who won't add to the burden. Imagine feeling like your existence is an inconvenience in the place you call home. When staffing problems reach critical levels, everything else falls apart faster. Hygiene suffers when there aren't enough hands for regular cleaning. Infections spread when proper protocols get skipped due to time constraints. Safety becomes secondary when staff are running from crisis to crisis without enough backup. And speaking of things falling apart, the staffing crisis creates another layer of problems that goes beyond just slow service or rush care. When staff are stretched thin and overwhelmed, guess what gets pushed to the bottom of the priority list? Basic cleanliness. Residents might go days without a proper shower, sometimes even weeks. Clean sheets become a luxury rather than a standard. And the weird part is, facilities often justify this by saying they're focusing on more important medical needs. But here's the thing. Hygiene isn't just about looking good or smelling fresh. Poor hygiene creates a domino effect that destroys health faster than you'd think. Unwashed bodies develop skin infections. Dirty sheets breed bacteria that cause urinary tract infections and pressure sores. Hair that goes unwashed for weeks can develop painful scalp conditions that make residents miserable. Let's not forget the environmental disasters happening in these places. Inadequate cleaning protocols mean bacteria and mold grow in places you wouldn't expect, behind beds, under furniture, in bathroom corners. One study found that 40% of nursing home surfaces contain dangerous bacteria levels, surfaces that residents touch daily. Mold spores floating through poorly ventilated rooms trigger respiratory problems, especially dangerous for elderly lungs already struggling with age-related decline. Then, there's the pest problem nobody talks about. Dirty facilities attract roaches, mice, and other unwanted visitors. Imagine trying to sleep while worrying about what might crawl across your bed at night. Residents have reported finding insects in their food, mice droppings in their rooms, and roaches scurrying across bathroom floors. These pests don't just gross people out, they carry diseases and contaminate everything they touch. The sensory assault hits you the moment you walk into poorly maintained facilities. Overwhelming smells of urine, feces, and disinfectant create a nauseating cocktail that never seems to fade. Stains on carpets, walls, and furniture tell stories of accidents left unattended for too long. Clutter piles up because there's no system for organizing personal belongings or maintaining common areas. What makes this worse is the psychological impact. Living in filth destroys dignity and self-worth. Residents who once took pride in their appearance give up trying to stay clean when staff won't help them maintain basic hygiene. They become embarrassed to see family members, which deepens their isolation and depression. Some stop eating properly because dining areas are dirty or their own hygiene makes them feel ashamed. Staff shortages create impossible situations where workers must choose between feeding residents and cleaning facilities. Guess which one wins? Feeding takes priority, leaving cleaning for later. Except later never comes. One aide reported cleaning just 2 resident rooms during a 12-hour shift because emergencies kept interrupting. By the end of her shift, she was too exhausted to tackle common areas or help residents with personal hygiene. The regulatory inspections meant to catch these problems often missed the mark. Facilities get advance notice, giving them time to deep clean and hide evidence of ongoing hygiene failures. Inspectors might visit for a few hours on one carefully prepared day, completely missing the daily reality residents endure. Between inspections, standards slip back to unacceptable levels. Budget cuts make everything worse. Cheaper cleaning supplies that don't actually disinfect properly. Reduced housekeeping staff who can't possibly maintain entire facilities alone. Broken washing machines that stay broken for weeks because repairs cost money. Hot water systems that fail, making proper sanitization impossible. These aren't accidents. They're cost-cutting decisions that prioritize profits over people. Personal hygiene becomes a battle residents often lose. Dentures go unclean, leading to mouth infections and eating difficulties. Fingernails grow long and dirty because no one trims them. Hair becomes matted and painful because brushing takes time staff don't have. Clothes get worn repeatedly without washing because laundry systems break down or get backlogged for days. The ripple effects extend beyond individual discomfort. Poor hygiene contributes to faster cognitive decline because infections and discomfort stress the brain. Social isolation increases because residents feel too ashamed to interact with others. Physical health deteriorates as preventable infections take hold and spread throughout weakened bodies. Family members visiting these conditions face heartbreaking choices. Do they complain and risk retaliation against their loved one? Do they try cleaning things themselves, essentially doing the facility's job for free? Many feel helpless watching their family members live in conditions they'd never accept for themselves. While hygiene problems create immediate suffering, there's another layer of institutional failure that runs even deeper, one that determines which residents get condemned to these conditions in the first place. Here's something that might shock you. Nursing homes in America operate like a tale of 2 cities. On one side, you've got facilities that look like luxury hotels with marble lobbies and gourmet meals. On the other, places where the paint peels, the food tastes like cardboard, and residents wait hours for basic care. The deciding factor isn't just money, it's often the color of your skin and your zip code. Black and Hispanic nursing home residents consistently receive worse care than their white counterparts. We're not talking about small differences here. Studies show minority residents are 40% more likely to develop pressure sores, 25% more likely to be physically restrained, and significantly less likely to receive proper pain medication. But why? The answer lies in a system that's quietly segregated itself. Most nursing homes today are more racially divided than public schools were in the 1960s. Sounds impossible, right? Yet, here we are. Facilities in predominantly white, wealthy areas attract better funding, higher quality staff, and superior resources. Meanwhile, homes in minority communities struggle with bare-bones budgets and overworked employees. Then, there's the Medicaid trap. About 70% of nursing home residents rely on Medicaid to pay their bills. But here's the kicker. Medicaid pays significantly less than private insurance. Homes that serve mostly Medicaid patients, which disproportionately include minorities, operate on shoestring budgets. They can't afford the same staff-to-resident ratios, the same quality food, or the same medical equipment as their wealthier counterparts. Let's talk numbers for a second. The average nursing home serving predominantly white residents spends about $206 per day per resident. Facilities serving mostly minority residents, they spend roughly $143 per day. That's a $63 daily difference that adds up to nearly $23,000 less per resident annually. Where does that money go? Better trained nurses, fresher food, cleaner facilities, more activities, basically everything that makes the difference between existing and actually living. Well, the discrimination doesn't stop at funding. Language barriers create another layer of problems. Many nursing homes serving immigrant communities lack bilingual staff. Imagine trying to explain pain, confusion, or basic needs to someone who doesn't speak your language. Residents end up isolated not just from the outside world, but from their own caregivers. Urban facilities face their own unique challenges. They're often housed in older buildings with poor ventilation and cramped spaces. The noise from city streets, the lack of outdoor areas, and the general chaos of urban environments contribute to higher rates of depression and anxiety among residents. Rural facilities aren't much better. They're frequently understaffed and located far from specialized medical care. And the weird part is how this inequality perpetuates itself. Facilities with better reputations attract families who can afford to pay more. They hire better staff, maintain nicer environments, and create a positive cycle. Meanwhile, underfunded homes spiral downward, losing good employees, cutting corners on care, and developing reputations that drive away anyone with options. Here's where it gets really twisted. Some facilities actively discourage certain applicants. They might claim they're full when contacted by Medicaid patients, especially minorities, while having beds available for private pay residents. It's illegal, but proving discrimination is nearly impossible when facilities can cite waiting lists or medical needs as reasons for rejection. Class discrimination runs just as deep. Residents who can afford private rooms get privacy and dignity. Those stuck with Medicaid often share cramped spaces with strangers, sometimes dealing with roommates who have severe behavioral issues or advanced dementia. Makes sense that your ability to pay determines your quality of life, right? Well, not when we're talking about basic human dignity. The psychological impact hits hardest. Minority residents often feel like second-class citizens in places that should be their homes. They watch other residents receive faster responses to call buttons, better food options, and more attention from staff. This isn't paranoia, it's documented reality that chips away at self-worth and mental health. But here's what really keeps this system broken. Most families don't know they have alternatives until it's too late. They accept whatever facility has an opening, not realizing they could demand better or look elsewhere. The urgency of needing immediate placement often overrides the luxury of shopping around. This institutional inequality sets the stage for an even deeper problem, one that strips away the most fundamental human need of all. Imagine waking up every morning and someone else decides what time you get breakfast, what you'll eat, when you can shower, even when the lights go out at night. Welcome to nursing home life, where personal freedom becomes a distant memory. Most people don't realize how much control residents actually lose when they enter these facilities. We're talking about adults who ran businesses, raised families, and made their own decisions for decades. Suddenly, they're living like children again, but without the promise of growing up. The day starts when staff decides it starts, usually around 6 a.m., whether you're a morning person or not. Breakfast happens at 7:30 sharp. Miss it? Too bad. The kitchen closes and you'll wait until lunch. No grabbing a snack from your own fridge, no sleeping in on Sunday. The schedule runs the show, not you. Food choices get even worse. Tuesday means meatloaf, Friday means fish sticks. Vegetarian? Good luck. The kitchen prepares one meal for everyone, And that's what you get. One resident told her daughter she dreamed about making her own peanut butter sandwich. Something that simple became impossible. Then there's the privacy issue. Most residents share rooms with strangers. Your roommate might snore or talk to themselves or have visitors at all hours. But you can't just move to another room like switching apartments. You're stuck. Staff members walk in without knocking. They need to check your blood pressure, give you medicine, change your sheets. Your room becomes less private than a hotel. At least hotels ask if housekeeping can come in. The bathroom situation gets particularly awkward. Many residents need help using the toilet or showering. Dignity disappears when you're waiting for someone else to help you with the most basic human needs. And if that staff member is busy, you wait. And wait, medical decisions slip away too. Doctors talk to your family about your health, not you. Nurses give you pills without explaining what they do. Your input matters less than it should, even when you're perfectly capable of understanding your own medical situation. Activities get scheduled like elementary school. Arts and crafts at 2 p.m., bingo at 4 p.m., movie night on Saturday. What if you hate bingo? What if you'd rather read a book during craft time? The activities coordinator already made the schedule. You follow it or sit alone in your room. Even something as simple as staying up late disappears. Lights out happens when the night shift decides. No staying up to watch your favorite late-night TV show. No reading until 2 a.m. because you can't sleep. The facility's routine becomes your routine, whether you like it or not. The weird part is how quickly people adapt to this loss of control. Psychologists call it learned helplessness. Residents stop asking for what they want because they've been told no so many times. They forget they ever had choices in the first place. Some facilities try to offer options. You can pick between 2 dinner entrees, choose your shower time from 3 available slots. But these aren't real choices. They're like picking between vanilla and chocolate ice cream when you wanted a hamburger. Financial control often disappears too. Family members take over bank accounts. Residents can't buy themselves new clothes or small luxuries without asking permission. One woman wanted to order a pizza for her birthday. She had to wait 3 days for her daughter's approval. The psychological impact hits hard. Depression rates skyrocket when people lose their sense of agency. Feeling helpless accelerates mental decline faster than almost any other factor. Your brain needs to make decisions to stay sharp. Without that exercise, cognitive abilities fade quickly. Staff members don't usually mean to strip away independence. They're following rules designed to keep everyone safe and fed and medicated properly. But safety comes at the cost of freedom. Every regulation removes another choice from residents' lives. Well, the loss of independence creates more than just inconvenience or frustration. When people can't control their basic daily lives, something more sinister starts happening to their minds and bodies. The connection between helplessness and health runs deeper than most families realize when they're making this difficult decision.